4 or 5 years ago, it was very much a hard technical challenge to run a chain. We've seen that change. We've seen a lot of infrastructure emerge. You can set up a chain with fairly minimal resources. However, the big challenge is how do you create an ecosystem of value? How do you grow that ecosystem? How do you attract people to that ecosystem? How do you retain them? And these are all things that I'd spent the last few years focusing on. Mode is a modular DeFi L2, which essentially means that we use the OP stack. We also use various different elements to enable us to scale. We are very much focused on building a DeFi ecosystem that rewards users and developers that grow it.
How many projects are building on Mode?
Our focus is less on quantity, much more on the quality. Can we have 50 applications with a high amount of daily active users? We would much rather have, 20 applications that work really well than 100 applications that are maybe smaller.
Before we begin, please note that the content provided in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as financial advice. Any decision you make based on the information presented here are at your own risk. Always consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
This is a conversation with James Ross, the founder of Mode Network, a modular DeFi L2 ecosystem. This interview happened when actually the airdrop was in making, which has now happened and created a lot of news. So in this episode, you will hear a lot about the inception of Mode Network, how the idea came about, what's its values, its ethos, how they got the Optimism grants, what all went behind the scenes when they were actually thinking of launching a token. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation. I am Diksha Dutta and you're listening to Web3 Quest. So before we ask you all things Mode and, all the exciting tweets I'm seeing, I just joined the Discord and so much action is happening there. I want to spend some time knowing you better. So who are you? What's your background? How did you get into the Web3 space? And then eventually, how did you start Mode? So take us through that.
Yeah, so I've been working in crypto since around 2017. My focus has been on early stage angel investing and helping teams with their go-to-market, building up, TVL and activity on chain. I was working pretty early on with DeFi teams and had a small consultancy, which was managing assets on chain and also helping teams grow. I then sold that to a company called Hype and worked with Hype much more closely, the CEO, with a number of large ecosystems on how they can essentially grow their application layer by onboarding developers, users. And it was a super exciting time. And I left Hype around 6 months ago to focus in on Mode. Been working on Mode for the last 6 months, built up a team, and we've really been trying to solve problems around how can you build new ways to fund and grow an L2 ecosystem. And we're focused primarily on building a new DeFi ecosystem with a number of new products and features, which make growing and launching a protocol easier for developers. So, we're EVM compatible. We have various incentive campaigns, incentive mechanisms, which enable developers to scale up their applications quickly on Mode. And it's been a very exciting time. We've managed to grow really fast. We are, focusing on growing our DeFi ecosystem, our native DeFi ecosystem to start with. And that's kind of where we are right now.
Cool. I have a lot of questions on Mode actually. But before that, I want to understand, so what was the trigger for you to go into this journey of, okay, now I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to build this, and this is what the ecosystem needs. What was like trying to get into your mind? Like, was this in planning, from a very long time, or was it some understanding of the ecosystem that triggered it? So what was it? Well, how did the idea come into your mind?
I kind of worked with a lot of big ecosystems, and I found that, I thought that a lot of what they were doing was, maybe not the way I would do things, right? So the way that they think about allocating resources to their ecosystem, I thought could be improved. And for me, growing an L1 or an L2 became less of a tech problem over the last few years. 4 or 5 years ago, it was very much a hard technical challenge to run a chain. And we've seen that change, right? We've seen a lot of infrastructure emerge. That means that you can set up a chain, or start running a blockchain, an L2, an L3, with, fairly minimal, resources. However, the big challenge is, how do you create an ecosystem of value? How do you grow that ecosystem? How do you attract people to that ecosystem? How do you retain them? And these are all things that I'd spent the last few years focusing on. So as this kind of change emerged, I started speaking to different ecosystems that were looking at expanding. So I spoke to Optimism, Polygon, and through discussing with Optimism, it seemed that like my idea around, launching an L2, which is focusing on new ways to distribute resources, and new ways to, incentivize developers and users, was something that could play into their overall vision of building out this super chain, which would be a group of chains working together, experimenting on different aspects of ecosystem growth. And essentially, that was kind of the catalyst to start building. We discussed how this can all work. They sold me in on like their wider vision. I've been very much like focused on Ethereum based applications, for the last few years, and the Ethereum ecosystem, and Optimism is very, very much aligned with this vision. From there, I got a team together and we essentially started working on stuff. So it was cool. Cool.
So how would you explain to a Web3 beginner, which is pretty much the audience of this podcast, that how this L2 is different from others out there, and what is Mode Network? Like, how would you dumb it down in simple terms to somebody who's very new to Web3, is an early developer, is figuring out how to do things, or even, people like me, like I'm not a beginner, but what I was maybe like 3 years back.
Absolutely. So Mode is a modular DeFi L2, which essentially means that we use a different tech stack. We use the OP stack. We also use various different elements to enable us to scale. We are very much focused on building a DeFi ecosystem that rewards users and developers that grow it. And the way we do that is via a couple of different mechanisms. So one is sequence of fee sharing with developers. As a developer, if you deploy an application and that application is used and people pay transaction fees via your application, you'll earn a share of those fees. We also have an on-chain referral mechanism. If you refer people to Mode and they start using applications, then you'll also earn a proportion of their transaction fees, and you'll be rewarded for that activity. So really our focus is on trying to build new incentive mechanisms that focus on growth. I would say we're like very much growth first and product first L2. We also have various products launching around native yield. So we believe that most L2s will have to offer native yield in the future. And what that essentially means is that there'll be assets on Mode that you can use that enable you to earn, staking yield if it's ETH-based tokens. So we're working with a project called Redacted on this. Redacted have a product called APX ETH, which is yield-bearing state ETH, LST. And we're also working with a project called Athena to create a Mode stablecoin, which will have yield from their SUSDE product. So our goal is really how can we create an ecosystem that has a variety of different yield opportunities and a variety of different risk profiles. And how can we enable DeFi applications and composability to emerge here and prepare for a time when, there's going to be interoperability amongst chains, and Mode can be like a DeFi hub where you keep your assets and then you might borrow against them to buy an NFT on Zora or Base or go vote in governance from Optimism, something like that.
And why Optimism?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I think for us, the OP stack is the most developed and most like production ready when it comes to building out an ecosystem and building out a secure, scalable stack. Like when you're looking at deploying L2 rollup, most decision making will come around like, do you want to change something at the protocol level? So do you want to change the data availability layer? Do you want to use something like Celestia or EigenTA? Do you want to run like a ZK focus chain? Or do you want to run an optimistic rollup? For us, we essentially wanted to run a stack that would be easy to or be fairly flexible to upgrade in the future, something that was extremely secure, and something that we wouldn't need a huge amount of technical resources to run. So, for example, if you're running the K-chain, it's often a good choice to use Polygon CDK because it's almost like an out-of-the-box solution. It's been very well tested, it's production ready. If you're looking to launch an optimistic rollup, then the OP stack is very much where you should look. We also have a lot of great conversations with the Optimism team. We're very aligned with their vision, and having teams like Base adopting the OP stack was really cool to see, because they've also been contributing a huge amount to the growth of Optimism and the growth of the ecosystem. So the decision was very much around like what we can get to like a production ready level quickly, and then have flexibility with how we potentially upgrade it in the future. And for that, OP stack was the best choice, or is the best choice still, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. I think, your values and the ecosystem's values really matter when you're building. You recently got a grant from Optimism as well in January this year. I'm correct, right? It's 6 million. So, for other founders who are looking for something like this, can you explain the process a bit? What are the factors? Like personally, how was your experience? And the second question is like, what is your plan to utilize, this grant and tokens for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been working closely with Optimism for a long time, for around 6 months, really since we started, and we were having conversations before then. As part of the grant agreement, Optimism as a organization is very much focused on supporting and rewarding impact to the ecosystem. So it can be difficult to navigate if you're looking for a grant upfront to do something, right? So, when you're maybe trying to build something new and you go to them and say, hey, I've got this idea. Here's like a spec. Can you give me $1 million to build it? It's pretty unlikely, unless it's a specific product they really need. And they put a request out for a proposal. It's pretty unlikely that something like that will get funded, because it doesn't really fit into their funding models, right? Their current funding models are very much around retroactively rewarding people, and also rewarding based on like milestones and goals. So for Mode, we launched our testnet. We had, I think, around 150,000 wallets. We had 500 or 600 developers deploying applications. We ran hackathon, 2 hackathons. We then launched our developer mainnet, which was like a live mainnet. We were spending like a significant amount per month on submitting transactions to the L1. So yeah, at this point, they saw like a lot of commitment. We had a few hundred developers building already. Our ecosystem was growing. Everything was growing. And yeah, so we got the grant to continue. We also deployed some key contracts. Like we built out the sequencer fee sharing module, deployed that. So the grant was, based on the work we'd done, the kind of commitment we'd shown, and also a commitment that as being part of the super chain, we would give a proportion of our sequencer fees back to the Optimism collective, and the DAO. And, they really liked that. And so, we've got this grant, which is to support growth of Mode, incentives on the network as well. And due to the price of OP tokens increasing, it's gone up slightly, which is great.
Yeah, that's the upside. I mean, this is a fascinating journey, actually. And 6 months is a short time to do the things that you just mentioned in terms of numbers. And actually the most difficult time for early stage founders and people who are building. What are the things that, you have learned in these 6 months while building from scratch? That if I say, just transfer this to somebody who's trying to do this, has a vision, and gets into a massive project, like at a huge scale, what you're doing, what have been your major learnings during these intense 6 months of building Mode?
I still think that like incentives, just in general, and coordination is a really hard problem to solve. I think like when it comes to ecosystem, community growth, that's all been like fairly as I expected, because I did this quite a few times before. Integrations on chain, like with applications and BDs, is also like super important. Having like a really good relationship with the teams who are going to build and supporting them. I think that like also what we set out and what we tried to like push when we started this was that like there needs to be a much larger focus in Web3 in general on building product and building like a more product focused approach to a chain. Like it wouldn't really work anymore to just build a chain and then just be like, hey guys, go use it, and have all these applications in different places, not really coordinating together in a cohesive way to build campaigns, educate people. I think that's been like proven pretty true by projects like Blast, Manta, by us. We've all taken a very product focused approach to growth, by looking at things like having user funnels and user journeys, thinking about incentives across different applications and different products like bridges, improving the experience there. creating things like landing pages around campaigns, like really basic stuff that people do in Web 2 hadn't really been done yet in Web 3. But it's, I guess a combination of the new energy in the space because the market's improving. And this product focused approach is like really, really helping teams grow much faster, which is awesome. I think I learned also a lot, like I always kind of understood that like for different people, different things are difficult. But yeah, like most developers, they just want to focus in on coding, right? They just want to focus in on building good stuff, right? Building awesome products. And they really need support with the growth side. And that's completely like fair. And like they should definitely get support from ecosystems on that. And they need predictability, right? Like one of the biggest problems with building any kind of startup is it's really hard to get to a point where you have like a sustainable business model. And in Web3, that's definitely the case. Like if I build an application, and I'm going to rely on funding from, I'm looking at like, what are my options to be able to build out this new application? I have like VC funding. I have grant funding. I have, launching a token.
Yeah.
There aren't too many other like, ways to like fund. So yeah, we should definitely get more creative and there should be more effort spent on like supporting, especially decentralized applications like DAOs on how they can, fundraise or have ongoing funding. So yeah, like the sequence of fee sharing module we have, it's one potential alternative revenue stream. It's definitely not going to be like the core revenue stream for all applications, but it's like one core revenue stream. And if we can build more revenue streams that are very clear for application developers, like, hey, if you get 10,000 users and 10 mil TVL and 100,000 transactions on your DEX, you'll get X amount of reward. Then we'll probably see more builders like trying to tackle these problems. Right now, everything is very vague. And I think that's like partly by design because we don't have like set frameworks on what success means. And so, yeah, we're trying to build this into mode as much as possible. We have this developer drop, which is essentially a competition amongst applications on mode, that can earn airdrops, and the applications will compete. So we'll have DEXs competing against each other, on core metrics. We'll have, lending protocols competing. We'll have perps protocols competing. And the key thing we want to try and do is be able to give them KPIs. They all compete. And depending on, hopefully this competition will create like a positive, a net positive for the ecosystem. Because the competition between them will increase growth across the ecosystem. And the lending protocols competing will mean that there's potentially more liquidity in the ecosystem for the DEXs to use, etc. So it's trying to find, our kind of core goal always comes back to how can we think about like what users and developers really need? How can we improve that relationship? And how can we, build new frameworks, mechanisms for these groups to work together to create something positive sum.
And how many developers are building on, or how many projects are building on Mode at present, and what is the rate that it's growing?
Yeah, I think that this is a pretty good question, because I've spoken to teams who are like protocol teams in the past. And I've said, like, how many developers do you have?
Yeah.
And some of them are like, oh, we've got like 2,000 applications. And it's like, wow, okay, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then you look and it's like, maybe like, 1,990 kind of dead, right? or like they're just random things that people have deployed and not really cared about. So our focus is less on, I guess, the quality, the quantity, much more on like the quality. Like, can we have 50 applications with active, like a high amount of daily active users, or like a good growth rate? And trying to think about like different metrics like this. Like, we would much rather have, 20 applications that work really well, have high TVL, than 100 applications that are maybe smaller. And I think this kind of goes back to how ecosystems grow traditionally. So in Web3, we see ecosystems grow, or their growth is usually driven by a few key applications. So if we look at Arbitrum, they had a lot of success with GMX and Treasure for their gaming ecosystem. And yeah, these applications built up really amazing early communities. They grew very fast because the teams did an awesome job at, growing these communities, building up this like hype around them. And they like propel the ecosystem forward. And it's really key to try and think about what that app is for each chain and how you can maximize the success of that application, right? We saw on Base, Base had Friend Tech, which was, a really awesome SocialFi application. And that like kicked off this whole energy around Base and on bridging to Base. Friend Tech was everywhere for, a couple months. So yeah, one or two good applications that take off can really make your ecosystem. So our goal is to focus in on how we can support a small amount, build products for them, help them with their growth, and help them take off. And currently, we're very much focused on lending protocols, DEXs and perp DEXs. We have around, I'm just looking at DeFi Llama right now. I think we're number 42 when it comes to ecosystems. I think some stuff's not being tracked correctly, so it's probably going to be higher. I think we'll be probably top 30 when we have tracking set up correctly. Or maybe not, maybe 34 above our ground. But we have right now 12. I would say we have 10 applications that are performing well. The largest one nearly has 50 mil TVL. So yeah, it's the focus is for us is on these DeFi applications, and looking at how they can become interoperable across across the super chain, and helping them kind of prepare for that.
When you say we help them, or you work closely with teams, so they can grow, they can focus on building. Can you double click on that and explain it with an example? Because if some builder is listening to this, they should know, okay, if I build on Mod, this is the kind of support I'm going to get. That would really be helpful.
Absolutely. So going to this product approach that we take with Mode, as an L2, all users of Mode have a dashboard. On that dashboard, they see, new applications at launch. And being on this dashboard, this dashboard is getting it's had millions and millions of views now. So getting on this dashboard is the best distribution mechanism. And we work with a data science team who come in. We start tracking all the core metrics of the application. We create dashboards, we create data for the teams, and we help them plan campaigns to start improving our application. So we get pretty involved. Right now we're supporting 6 or 7 applications, and it's essentially they have a top go-to-market team working for them, a data science team. And they have access to the team 24 hours a day. We plan campaigns with them. We run quests. We do a load of different stuff to ensure that they can hit their targets, hit their goals. We have a pretty strict process for this. So you have to go through multiple audits, one from your an audit to maybe of your choosing or previous audit, and then one from one of our partner security firms that we work with before we will recommend the application to the community. We then have to agree on core KPIs, core budgets, and goals that we want to achieve. We have to make sure that all the data on the application is being indexed correctly and being fed back into our overall model of the ecosystem. And then we start executing. And this process can take as long as 3 to 4 weeks. But we've also turned it around where an application's come to us deployed on Node. We've integrated them, started running campaigns in 5-6 days.
What are developers excited about in the Web3 DeFi space right now? What is the sense you get?
I think right now we see around 30 to 40% of DeFi is focused around liquid staking, liquid restaking. And I imagine that will continue. EigenLayer is an incredible force building up this whole new narrative around restaking. And we're just starting to scratch the surface on what's being built there. So that's really, really exciting. I think there's definitely a lot of risks in this space as well, right? Leveraging up restaked assets, or staked assets there's definitely risk involved. But I think it's something that a lot of people are excited about. A lot of developers are excited about too. We're also seeing, Athena is building a new stable coin. That's definitely excited a lot of people. And, it's not, I shouldn't say they're building a new stable coin. They're building a new synthetic dollar asset.
Okay.
Just there's a new, people are creating new financial instruments. And I think there's a lot of interesting things happening here. I think when it comes to cross-chain or multi-chain, mainly cross-chain applications, I think we're seeing a lot of cool things being built out. There definitely needs to be, new standards of interoperability. But the team at Layer Zero are doing great stuff. The team at Connect, the team at Socket, they're all building really interesting cross-chain things. So that would be kind of my focus. I think it's Mode's focus anyway for the next few months.
Yeah, we have a good year ahead, hopefully, in the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And how's your team? How's the team structured? Tell us a bit about the core team. What are their backgrounds? And generally, try to get your sense, is it lean? Is it do you think of growing it at this stage? How do you look at the whole team dynamics at Mode right now?
So at the moment, our team is fairly small. There's around 7 of us. And we have, myself, we have Kai, who's previously the head of DeFi at BNB Chain. We have Patrick, who was previously director of engineering at Near. We have Nick, who has run a number of software companies and is managing our product. And we have Adam, who was previously the co-founder of a project called DegenScore, which is an on-chain reputation for whales and active DeFi users. So our team's very DeFi focused. We've been basically using stuff, building stuff in this space for a long time. So I think that probably is, one reason why we've been able to attract some great applications to the chain.
Okay. And I think you also tweeted that you'll be looking for more team members. So if anybody's
Yeah.
listening, like what are the areas you're looking for?
To be honest, we're kind of looking generally to like grow the team. So we will, focus in on like engineering. Like we need more integrations engineers. We will also grow our ecosystem team, business development team. On community and marketing, we're pretty good. We have a great team there. And product team, a couple more people too. So yeah, we're looking to expand pretty aggressively. And yeah, I think now is like a great time to be joining a new ecosystem. So if anyone's listening, shoot me a DM.
Do you want to explain the tokenomics bit at Mode? Because the airdrop is, I think, live. Is it live? It is, right?
Yeah, the airdrop's live. We haven't kind of got into like the overall tokenomics. But yeah, essentially the airdrop is giving away up to 5.5% of the total supply in this campaign. The token will launch in April. So yeah, there's a lot of upside for people who join the ecosystem early and contribute, bring TBL, use applications.
Okay, so no more on the token utility and tokenomics, a bit you can share, or we should stay tuned for more info on that.
Exactly.
Okay. And want to talk a bit about also the angel investing side of yours. How did you get into angel investing, and what have you learned about investing in different, projects in the space? Because I want to talk about that side a bit.
Yeah, I kind of got into it like I'd been kind of by luck, I guess. Like I had a company in London, a fintech company that we built some software, some like analytics software for banking data. At a point where like banking data in Europe was about to be opened up. And yeah, we had a lot of issues with like compliance. I was like 25. I wasn't like very experienced. And yeah, essentially like was really struggling with growing that company because it was a lot of like red tape and a lot of regulation. And yeah, we just weren't really cut out for it. So managed to make a deal where we sold that. And it wasn't a good sale. It was a bad sale. It was like a fire sale, I think you call it, when you're just like, I need to give up, and someone's going to give me a bit of money. And yeah, I guess I won't lose all my initial investment that I put into it. And then, yeah, essentially I was pretty annoyed with like finance world. So I just, started buying Ethereum, the day before the DAO hack, or 2 days before. And I remember shilling all my friends like, hey, it's this Ethereum thing. It's going to be so cool. Everyone's going to do it, like, and buy it. They did this big crowd sale, like $100 million crowd sale, biggest crowdfunding ever. Mm-hmm. And then, 2 days later, DAO hack happened. And I was like to my friends, like, hey, did any of you like actually buy that Ethereum thing? And they're like, no, bro, we'd never listen to you. I was like, okay, cool, no worries. But essentially, I kind of just held the Ethereum I bought. I bought it for like $10. So I used that for like some ICOs and different things which were happening on chain. Like I was a pretty early user of like prediction markets, and like DeFi and stuff like that. So that kind of enabled me to be able to, angel invest quite actively. And I mean, my strategy has pretty much been like just try and find teams that are building interesting stuff and, support them as much as possible and try and keep like some liquidity for the bear markets. The first bear market, I didn't have that much liquidity, so I missed out on like some great deals. But yeah, this last bear market, I managed to keep some liquidity. So yeah, when times were tough, there were some great deals available that, yeah, normally like it's very hard to get into, because now we're back in a period where the market is, you know, definitely up. People are very optimistic about the future. It means that the best deals, or, you know, any deal right now is like super oversubscribed, really hard to get into. So yeah, for anyone who is thinking of angel investing, I think the most important thing is to be able to like manage your portfolio. So you have some liquidity, through periods, where others, might not have any liquidity. That's when you find the best deals.
Yeah. I mean, it's not everybody's thing as well, right? To identify. But yeah, at the angel stage, probably it's the team that's the most important thing to look out for while investing. Cool.
Yeah, I think, in general, I think especially like at seed stage, you have to bet on the team. There's so many things can change, right? So many things can change. And a good team will, usually do a good job at like maximizing, their chance of success.
So today is 26th February, just so that people know when they listen. What can we expect from Mode in the next 6 to 8, 10 months? What do we look forward for? What is your focus? What are the plans?
Yeah, we have some cool stuff that we've like just released. So we've been working with an infrastructure provider on creating L3s on Mode. We have a few of those on testnet, a couple of those on testnet right now. And those will be, that ecosystem should start growing out significantly. We have like a native DeFi ecosystem, which is growing well. But we are going to start to work with larger DeFi applications as well. So I expect a lot of those will be launched. We'll have a token launching. And this is actually a key part of building out our incentive models. We'll be working closely with Optimism on creating or supporting applications of being interoperable across the superchain. We have a potential project we're working on with Eigenlighting, which, can't say too much about, but that's probably going to be quite cool. We'll have native tokens on Mode, which represent yield bearing opportunities. That's also going to be really interesting. So I think those are really the key things.
Wow, that's a lot. I think we need to talk again after 6 months, after all this has happened.
Yeah.
So much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And now I think we have some time still. And I have some, we always do this at the end of the podcast. We ask some light, rapid fire questions to know you more, outside of the Web3 world. So I'm going to ask you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, which is the first NFT you bought, James, and which year was it?
I think it was a CryptoKitty in 2018 or 19. I can't remember, but I remember that I bought an NFT called a Cheese Wizard. I bought a load of Cheese Wizards, and I spent way too much money on trying to win the Cheese Wizard competition. And it was the second project from CryptoKitties.